The big quote circulating around the gaming internet at time of writing is from Eiji Aonuma, talking about the future of the Zelda franchise, and it goes as follows. Why do you want to go back to a type of game where you're more limited or more restricted in the types of things or ways you can play? This was said in reference to fans wondering if there would be more games made in a more classic Zelda style. And of course, the internet has been discussing this completely civilly, with Zelda fans being renowned worldwide for their balanced and generally level-headed responses. With that in mind, don't go anywhere while we unpack this quote. First and foremost, let's remember that the English-speaking world has only heard this through a translator, so there's always the potential for some nuance and phrasing to be lost in translation. That being said, another part of the quote reads, "Games where you need to follow a specific set of steps or complete tasks in a very set order are kind of the games of the past, whereas currently the games of today are ones that can accept a player's own decisions and give them the freedom to flexibly proceed through the game, and the game will allow for that." Taken together, these definitely seem to paint the picture that Aonuma believes that the more open format is just how games are made now, and that it's more of a realization of what Nintendo always wanted the games to be, rather than just following an industry trend. Essentially, the gist of what he's saying is that since we can make our games bigger, we should, since that's obviously what game developers have been wanting to do for ages and have just been limited by the technology. I'd also like to pop an extra little nugget of quote in here before we move on, and it goes, "I do think we as people have a tendency to want the thing that we don't currently have. There's a bit of a grass is greener mentality." Remember that one. It'll be important later. So here the quote ignites an age-old game debate about linearity versus openness, and I'm here to say, unequivocally, once and for all, that both have their merits, so please stop arguing. Or, if you're gonna argue anyways, do it here in my comments section for the engagement. I could use the help. Realistically, these types of games just have different strengths, and depending on what you're looking for in a game, either type can appeal to you more or less. For example, Tears of the Kingdom is absolutely unparalleled in giving players freedom. You can solve most puzzles in many different ways, and the way that Ultra Hand works to allow this is incredibly impressive. But I'd like you to think for a moment about the story of the game, and more specifically, its pacing. By handing over control of the path the player takes, the game also loses most of the control it has over the pacing of the story. Sure, if we play to the end, we'll all hit the same beats, but the way we play and the path we take to get there could look completely different. While lacking in freedom, smaller, more linear games maintain tighter control over their pacing, and story moments can hit harder. While you can't go off gallivanting, torturing Koroks in Portal, the fact that Valve knew almost exactly how long you'd be holding onto that companion cube meant they were able to craft the moment where you have to incinerate it to come at the most impactful time possible. If you have to do the same in a game like Tears of the Kingdom, you might have been carrying whatever it is around for 60 hours before you had to get rid of it, since instead of progressing the story, you ran off to go beef up Link's photography portfolio. Now, this might sound like I'm being down on Tears of the Kingdom, but I'm really not. What I'm trying to illustrate is the simple fact that a game with a more open format relinquishes control over its narrative pacing and has to overcome additional hurdles in order for those moments to land the same way. Would BioShock's twist have been nearly as impactful if we'd been exploring an open world farming rare plasmid drops off Big Daddies for 20 hours before we got to it? Probably not. There's a trade-off to be made when making games, and it's exceedingly difficult for a tight, well-paced story to exist alongside large amounts of player agency, since players are almost exclusively dickheads and you really can't predict how they'll experience a story when you give them a choice. To address the quote specifically, where Aonuma asks why players would want more linear experiences despite those being the games of the past, it's because there is a trade-off with story in the way we experience it when making a huge open game, which does mean that we're losing something along the way. Though it absolutely improves the experience for some, adding freedom isn't a straight upgrade in the minds of many players, who might prefer something that brings them through a sequence of events in a carefully pre-planned way, rather than asking them to just figure it out for themselves. Next up is the bit where Aonuma says that gamers have a bit of a grass is always greener mentality, which, acknowledging potential issues of translation, comes across as a bit of a dig against the fans, implying they aren't ever really satisfied with what they have and will always want something else. And here's where I'd like to push back, because that doesn't sit right. I don't feel like many people are actually saying there should never be another Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom style Zelda game again. These games are fantastic achievements and beloved by an enormous number of people. But what I do think is that lots of people are understandably thinking that after 2 of these in a row, we might like a return to the more traditional formula for a game or two. We haven't had a brand new 3D Zelda adventure in the traditional mold since Skyward Sword in 2011, and no all-new 2D Zeldas since A Link Between Worlds in 2013. I can only really speak for myself, but I adore variety in my video games, and I was definitely disappointed when the quotes came out, the older quotes that is, that the newer open world style would be the, quote, new format for the series, because it seemed to say that there was no room for the types of games that came before. This isn't because I didn't enjoy the past two Zelda releases, and it definitely isn't because I wouldn't like another game in that format in the future, but more so because the viewpoint they seem to be taking is that the new style has completely replaced the old style, and there's no room for them to coexist. It's a shame that Aonuma doesn't understand why fans would want variety in their Zelda games, and return to the more traditional style, since to so many people it's obvious why. Those games are cherished, and many of them still hold up today, and we as fans would be excited to see what a new game in that format might look like. I can't understand why he thinks this way though, since from his perspective, he's just finished working on something that he rightfully feels is one of his best works yet, which followed up another of his previous works that was received similarly well. It's an achievement that he's been looking forward to and refining and crafting and trying to make for all these years, and he's finally realized it. And now he's just faced with a bunch of questions about whether he'll stop making things this new way and go back to what came before. That's like if you make someone a couple of absolutely delicious pies, and then all they do is come back and say, hey, when are you going to make me another cake? You used to make cakes and they were awesome. And I think that's understandably a bit difficult to reconcile, because you're happy with what you're doing, you're excited about it, but people are only focused on what you did previously. Thanks for watching my second attempt at making Zelda fans mad at me. I'm not sure how or why I'll annoy them this time, but I'm sure it'll happen. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing, and maybe kicking me a few dollars on Patreon if you really feel like it. I'd also like to announce quickly that the votes are in from the poll, and the next notoriously shitty game I'll be playing is Homefront: The Revolution, so look out for that coming up probably early in the new year. Don't forget to tell me how stupid my opinions are in the comments, and I'll see you next time.